Starfield is slated for its full release on September 6th, and there is a galaxy's worth of content to dive into. Terrible joke aside, I won't lie to you, the game does a terrible job at introducing you to the game's many mechanics. In this video, I want to help deal with that learning curve by talking about my top tips to know before you start your first playthrough of Starfield. There are no spoilers in this video, and all the content is taken from well within the first handful of hours, so don't worry about pivotal bits of information or plot being divulged here. You can find the entire list in the description and timeline below, so please feel free to just kind of navigate to any tips that interest you the most. If you end up enjoying this video, let me know in the comment section below. Always love to hear from you bros. But also don't forget to follow me on Twitch, where I've been streaming Starfield and Baldur's Gate 3. You can find that linked in the description and pinned comment as well. Well, let's get started here on my top tips for beginners in Starfield. So one of my first actual tips is not really even a tip, it's more of an ethos or an approach to this game. And it's something that I sort of forgot when it comes to Bethesda games. Play the game at a slow pace. Take your time. Enjoy yourself. I forgot that when I first booted up Skyrim, I didn't even touch the main story. But I'm so used to playing games like The Witcher or Baldur's Gate or any of the other RPGs where I kind of fast travel my way through things to just get to the next quest. Almost like the same way I would play an MMO. Kind of too much of a power gaming style. So I would strongly encourage you, or even remind you, that this is again a Bethesda game. As soon as you log in and go into your first planet, maybe don't go for the quest. Start looking around, explore stuff, go and do things that are not the main quest out the gate. Because I think if you do that, you'll experience that this game has quite a lot of things to offer you. And if you do just the kind of warping around and doing of quests, the game feels very shallow, like it doesn't have much to offer. And that's the way I approached it originally, and now that I've kind of switched gears away from that and focused more on the exploration of it, I'm having a lot more fun with Starfield. So that's my first tip in a way to kind of prime you for things, is to really just explore and enjoy the game. Next up, I want to have a conversation about your scanner, and we're going to really be using this a lot more than I thought we would. So when you take a look at a planet, you have a number of locations on the planet. You can go to those locations, explore around, and do certain things. But if you're maybe used to playing Skyrim or other games, you're used to having something that gives you a guide towards the unexplored portions of it. Well, if you press F to bring up your scanner and kind of look around, you can find things that maybe, oh, okay, well, there's that unexplored geophysical feature. We can go all the way over there. There's this unknown thing all the way over here. Playing with your scanner up is actually quite a big portion of this game, and you should be using the scanner far more than you would think otherwise. And when you press F, if you look in the lower left corner, you can see you kind of get that same dial that you had whenever you'd play Skyrim or Fallout, where it would show you where things are as kind of like a compass. It's the same thing. It's the same thing this time around. So if I kind of navigate and turn around, I can start to see things as they are on the map. You can see that very faint off in the distance. It's barely visible on the little circle in the lower left, but as you kind of turn around, you can line things up and get a bearing using both the scanner and the kind of compass in the lower left corner. Harvesting resources is also a very big part of this game. You've probably come across this in the very first portions of the game. You simply left click and you can harvest this lead. It takes a bit of time. Well, if you look at the actual crosshair here, it has these little notches on it. On the PC, you can right click and it kind of charges it. It focuses the beam. So you saw how long it took to harvest that lead before? There you go. It harvests way faster. Now this does take a lot more battery and the thing will exhaust quicker, but this will allow you to kind of harvest things that take a little bit longer to harvest otherwise, and that gets through things a lot faster for you, so you'll spend less time doing this action. If you're familiar with any kind of Bethesda game, then you're familiar with sneaking around and shooting things with a bow and arrow. Well, in this game, you actually can't do that unless you unlock the corresponding skill. And there's plenty of other skills in this game where you cannot do things unless you get that skill. So let's take, for example, here, stealth. This is what unlocks and adds a stealth meter. You have it 25% more difficult to detect when sneaking. Suppressed weapons do an additional 5% sneak damage. So if you've been sneaking around by pressing down control, again, I'm not sure what that is on console, and you have been looking for your stealth meter, it's because you don't have stealth unlocked. Conversely as well, if we jump over here to social, you can't even steal things from people if you don't have theft. If you come into tech, you cannot use the boost pack that the game gives you unless you actually have boost pack training. There are a lot of these little things throughout the game, even something like research methods, which doesn't say that it unlocks certain researches, does actually unlock certain researches. So if there's something that you're looking for in specific, check to see if there is a skill that corresponds to it, and why you're not getting access to it is because you do not have that skill. And since we're on the subject of skills, leveling your skills up is not so cut and dry. You don't just simply use the skill and level it all the time. Take, for example, weightlifting here, which increases your total carrying capacity by 10 kilos. Now, you don't level this up by simply having it. You level it up by sprinting, as you can see in the lower left corner here, sprint for 1,000 meters while at 75% or more of your maximum load capacity. So this gives you something to kind of keep in mind as you play through the game, that it's not just simply having weightlifting that levels it, it's how you use it. Another really good example here would be boost pack training. You have to boost jump 10 times while in combat to unlock it. You need to do those challenges to get yourself to rank 2. You cannot progress through the ranks unless you do the challenges for each rank. Now these will change, of course, as you progress through this, but it's still worth noting, keep in mind how these challenges progress the ranks for your individual skills. With an already kind of lackluster tutorial, go ahead and jump into the menu, and we're going to go to Help. Help actually has a lot of really good little articles here that break down a lot of things within the game you probably had no idea about, especially stuff like damage types. When you take a look at armor, it says physical, energy, and EN, and it doesn't really make much sense. Well, those are the resistances to the specific damage types, and it tells you where those damage types come from, how they affect you, and so on and so forth. So use these help articles, as it were, to really dive in on any mechanic you maybe don't know 100%, or maybe something just doesn't make sense. I, for one, was looking at all of these things on my armor and my inventory going, well, what is EN? It took me going through these help articles to find out some more information that I wish the game had just told me otherwise. Another tip here about your scanner is that you should be using it inside as well as outside. If I go ahead and press F, or whatever that is on console, I can see that all the things that I can loot are highlighted. They're all right here, kind of standing out for me. And this is important because maybe, you walk into a location, you don't want to just kind of bring your cursor across the wall to find everything. You can just press F and find it as you see it, as it gets highlighted. But there's one further little bit to this. If I jump over here and go into my skills and then into social, you can see with scavenging at the bottom, tracked resources will get highlighted when using the hand scanner. And also if I jump into science in my surveying, I get a little bit more stuff out of my hand scanner as well, such as zooming and so on and so forth. Now you can also upgrade this scanner to pinpoint certain things and show you stuff with a little bit more detail. So really the scanner is, I can't stress enough, a huge boon to you as the player. Junk. It's one of the biggest driving forces of any Bethesda game. Well, you're not playing Fallout, and you don't need duct tape this time around. So I encourage you not to pick up a ton of the junk items in this game. They won't be used for construction. They're not helpful. If it is an important construction material or anything of the sort, it will tell you that it is a crafting material, which is actually a very nice thing to have. But you should still take a look at some items, because some items you have to kind of weigh their overall weight versus their value, since weight is kind of, carrying capacity is at a premium in this game. As you can see right here, this is a coffee mug. It's worth 55.25. I'm not going to bother with that. Now this coffee bag isn't a huge amount of money, but at least it's a 0.35 and it's worth a little bit more. So I would encourage you pretty much to skip almost any and all junk. But if you see something that has a particularly high value, like for example, you'll find like decorative globes that have like 600 or 700 value that you can sell, and they really only maybe weigh 1 kilo. So you pick those up and get quite a bit of money, but for the most part, you can skip on almost all the junk you see. Combat. You're going to get into a lot of it in this game, and one of the more frustrating things is not having the ability to peek. It may be the kind of way you're used to if you've played Call of Duty or you've played Rainbow Six. But if you get close to the edge of something and hold right click or whatever the aim down sight is on console, you'll auto peek, which is a great boon. If you press Control and come up to something, you'll auto peek, or you'll come over the top of it if you need to. And this is really great when you're going through combat. We don't have the VAT system that we had in Fallout, but this allows you to move from cover and take advantage of being able to peek out and shoot things. You just have to make sure that you're pretty much like 50% of the way obscured within cover to right click and pop out and shoot something. So I strongly encourage you use this in any and all of your combat, since we again do not have the benefit of the VAT system from Fallout. Now, another really big tip for you is building out your character. You can be a generalist going across a bunch of different fields, but I would encourage you to kind of fine-tune a character to choose at least a couple fields to specialize in. This is over at the website Nukes and Dragons. You can find a link to this in the description in the pinned comment. But this is a really good way to get an idea of what these skills are prior to even creating your character or the first day you jump into the game. Because maybe you boot it up, you're like, well, I don't really understand what does a ballistic weapon system actually do, or how does targeting control system actually affect my character? You can use this to get a good idea of how those things affect your character, and you can even see what further levels in this system look like as you just kind of invest more and more points beyond the level 1. So I strongly encourage you to kind of use this to get a feel for things, look around, check stuff out. You can take a look at all the traits from things as if you started the game brand new, and just kind of get a balance for what makes the most sense for you and your character. Don't play what I'm telling you to play. Play what makes sense for you. This is a single player narrative game. There's no point to min-max this. Just have fun, create a sort of role play for your character. Like I personally am playing as some sort of space scoundrel. So I want to fall harder and harder into that angle however I can. And I strongly encourage you to do the same to really get the most out of your money invested in this game and out of playing through the hours and hours ahead of you in Starfield. But at that, it brings our video here to a close. So hopefully this helped you out in kind of breaking apart that learning curve in Starfield. It is pretty brutal. Jumping into the game, you're like, I don't understand what this does, and how does this have any relation to this mechanic or that mechanic? There are a ton of things that I haven't even covered. So if you know of a really good tip that you've discovered in your 10, 20, 30 hours of playthrough, whatever it is, let it be known in the comment section below. Try to spread as much information as possible so anyone else jumping in can really get their hands on their enjoyable portions of Starfield immediately. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.